life is good, but we need to remember that what we perceive with our natural senses is only part of reality. We're actually going to spend a lot more time in the afterlife than in this one. Welcome to SkyWatchTV. I'm Derek Gilbert. It's a special broadcast for Thursday, February 2nd, 2017. Guest in studio with us today, man, creates some very groundbreaking and fascinating video content for the internet, but also addresses some very important subjects. And as you might guess from the introduction, the most recent is titled Afterlife. We welcome the man behind the God in a Nutshell project, Trey Smith. Trey, welcome back.
It's an honor to be here today with you, Derek.
You have produced a series of videos that you call Entities, and the most recent, Afterlife, which features some folks that viewers probably are familiar with. One that they should get to know if they don't know him already, Pastor Casper McLeod. But talk about the premise behind the video, Afterlife. What was it you were trying to, what was the message that you were trying to put out there with that video?
Well, one of the things that I had wanted to, or I felt like the Lord had led to do was to do something that wasn't on politics coming right after the Trump video.
Yes.
And I'll tell you this.
Right.
Well, and it's not that that's not important. I mean, that is important. But second down from that was to release something. These were clips of things, Derek, that I had wanted to put out there for some time, man. In those clips are people that are telling you about heaven or hell. They're telling you that when they die, that they're stepping out of this reality immediately into another place. And depending on how long they're there, they're either going to see heaven or hell. And they're generally going to run into either angels or friendly-looking things or demonic-looking things, which sometimes look like the alien things. But more than that, also in that video, walk them through some prophetic stuff that proves the mother of all afterlife and life after death experiences. And that's the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And
that is the key to the whole thing. We were talking before we began recording here about the change in my worldview over the last couple of decades. 20 years ago, I have not had but maybe one experience that I could really classify as supernatural. And at the time, I thought, oh, that's just sleep paralysis. Okay. But there are other people who will see things and experience things like the experiences, the accounts in the video Afterlife that would have, 20 years ago, I would have taken as oxygen deprivation or hallucination or something, some other explanation other than a supernatural explanation. How have your views changed on accounts like that during your life?
You know, Derek, that seems to be almost everybody. And that's that's maybe why shows like this one do well and sets like the Entities. And it is because I think everyone watching can relate to something, whether it's a large thing or a small thing or an in-between thing, that they've tried to do the same thing with, because they went to the university and, it surely can't be something supernatural because we were told that was foolish. So
that's right.
It's a hallucination or something else. But no, I don't think that it is. I believe that that what you're looking at, it is real. You're looking at it clip after clip after clip after clip in grand intensity. And in fact, even in that Entities video, there's only just the tip of the iceberg of people that I've actually talked to who have died. Many of them under medical care. And everyone, save not one, steps out of this place into another dimension. Now, the critical thing after this is what saves them, what makes the difference. And to kind of demonstrate that, and that really is a relationship with Jesus. That's, and I wanted to put that in such a way that people could see that, and something they could just click on, and particularly coming after this election.
Yeah, Facebook has gotten to be a place where you need to put on a bulletproof vest before you can, click on the and go in there anymore. When going back about 10 years, let me do my math here real quick. That's about right. Maybe a little earlier. Sharon and I attended a small church where an evangelist told his near-death experience where he died on the table, and described it in terms similar to the accounts in your video, where he didn't want to go, he didn't want to go, he didn't want to go, and then suddenly he was enveloped by the sense of love, the white light, and seeing, and knowing that he was in the presence of God. And then suddenly he didn't want to go back, but they said, no, you have more to do. You have to go back. And you know, it was an amazing change, you know, for somebody who took his responsibilities as a husband and father seriously. I can't leave my wife and my children, to I don't want to go back. I want to stay here. How are the accounts different? You mentioned that some accounts are not quite so pleasant.
I'm actually fascinated you were just telling that story, because it sounds identical to a story I heard from a guy that didn't want me to film him, that I spent time with, that was a cattle rancher. He had, can't remember what he did for a living, but it was some kind of banking stuff or something for some time. Had a heart attack, and he died, man. And came back to life, and well, he saw an angel. That he went to some other place. He saw people going through a door, the light, all of it, and something put out its hand and said, and he was immediately afraid. You know, is how he described it.
Yeah.
Well, why can't I go? Why can't I go? And he knew where he had come from. In fact, he had saw it. He could describe to you things the doctors were doing to him.
Yes.
Well above them while going out, which is another fascinating thing about these life after death. You know, how does the person on the table have a vivid imagination of exactly what's happening in the room, and what the people are doing while they're going up to some other place? And you have lots of these, plethoras of them. But in this man's case, of course, he's going, and the place that he's going to looks indescribable. You know, the heaven experiences, they always can't describe it because it's beyond them. You're dealing with things that are, even in the book of Enoch, well, it's just beyond me. You know, I wish I could describe it. That's how good it is. The hell stuff they can always describe to a T, because it's almost like it's lesser than. It's demonic. It's they're demons. They're ugly. They're, you know, it's like HD, high definition, better than Hollywood demons. Bad. But the heaven stuff is indescribable. Anyhow, this angel put out its hand and said, "You're not going." And he was, you know, nervous. Well, why not? Why can't I go? And the angel said, "I don't know. I just do what I'm told." And said it pushed him, and he fell back into the body and woke up on that operating table. And so now he doesn't do the banking or whatever. He's out there on like a cattle ranch, right? Sitting there, kind of a thing. He loves the cows. He knows all their names, and is waiting for the day that he can go on home. So,
unlike the accounts of say the mediums, like it was John Edward was one who was very popular on television some years back, would always hear from relatives who'd crossed over and everything was fine and everything was wonderful and they're all in a better place and everything is good. These experiences seem to have two different outcomes. Either there is a reward for those who, a good outcome for those who have accepted Jesus Christ, or may still yet, and then there's another outcome which is clearly not pleasant, is horrifying, terrifying, absolutely something from an R-rated horror film produced by Hollywood. It's not all good, and that was kind of the point that Chris was making in that book. When you get to these accounts, not everybody goes to a better place, which is what we read in the Bible.
Most people don't.
And that's right. And that's what Christ tells us, that, you know, the way is, you know, the straight and narrow is the way. Right. And most people aren't going to find it because they're following the easy path, the broad way that leads to destruction. So I'm glad that you did this, because I think people need to know, first and foremost, that the supernatural realm is real and that there is something outside what we experience with our natural senses. A university professor, Dr. Rick Strassman, did some experiments with a molecule, a DMT, which is magic mushroom chemical.
Right.
It's produced in small amounts by the pituitary gland, but in larger amounts, it basically, apparently, opens the senses up to things that we don't see with our eyes. And the volunteers in his experiment were seeing things, sometimes multiple, you'd have more than one volunteer reporting, seeing the same thing in the same place at the same time, independently
Right.
of one another. His reaction, unfortunately, was that we need to do more experiments to figure out how the Hebrew prophets were able to see into this realm so that we can do it on command, on demand, whenever we want, instead of considering that the warning of the Apostle John, test the spirits because not all are from God. You also looked at some other evidence in the video, like the Shroud of Turin, which I think is a fascinating case. Without digging too deeply into that, what was it about that artifact that attracted your attention, that you found interesting enough to include in this video presentation?
The more that we had looked at it, the more that we began to take it very seriously. And Casper McLeod had spent 40.
Wrote a book on it. Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote a book on it, and this is something that had really changed his life. But more than this had actually changed a lot of atheist lives that had come in as scientists to investigate it back in, I think the 70s.
Yeah, there have been different teams working on it at different points in history, and
well, and you began to look at it and realize that okay, these guys are establishing it's not painted on there, it's not drawn on there. The dirt from the knee is on there before the image is made. So you're looking at a real body. It's the front and back. And it's, created by some kind of, it's actually sort of burned, like as if radiation.
yeah. I mean, even if you accept that it was created in the, 12th or 13th century A.D.,
Yeah.
what are the odds that somebody in that period of time, having no knowledge of photography, a 19th century invention, that they would create essentially a photographic negative
Yeah.
on the shroud?
There's no image like it on Earth.
Right.
And so there it is. It's like a receipt, paid in full.
That's, yes.
So and the Catholic Church has, I really commend them for, they've taken very good care of it.
Preserved it, yeah.
And I like the fact that they invited atheists in to do the test for it.
Right.
And they were nervous about that because they've got this thing. And, they probably figured it wasn't real because you're in an age where that's what the science says about everything. And here it was, your very scientists that came in to test it, who they were kind of chuckling about, yeah, right, we're going to prove this thing is false in 30 minutes. These became the guys that went out to say it's real. It wasn't the Catholic Church or anybody else. They were scared.
Yeah.
It was the atheists that came out and said, oh, yeah, we've actually changed our lives because of this cloth. And that was Casper's story as well. And I found that, and then the evidence just builds from there until it's, it's infinite. But you look at one or two things and you say, wow, I believe it's the shroud that covered Jesus Christ is what I think.
Yeah. And it's a nice balance to the film, because then you've got the physical evidence, because you can always dismiss somebody's account as subjective.
Yeah.
And dismiss it as saying, okay, well, again, oxygen deprivation in the brain, hallucination caused by trauma, whatever, and dismiss the accounts of the near-death experiencers. But then you've got this cloth, and that's the hard evidence that has been subjected to many, many scientific tests. They still haven't come up with a suitable explanation for how it could be created via natural means.
Right. Well, Derek, we're in, entities in its entirety is, and really a lot of those clips come from the end, and some of them are new stuff that we threw in there. And we even gave it an extremely uplifting ending, because particularly in the time we're in right now, people kind of need that. There's a lot of tension and these kind of things. But that journey is one that takes you through. Look, the occult is real. The supernatural is real. You're surrounded by it. You're surrounded by it. And the evidence of it is, it's not just one thing. I mean, you can look in the Shroud of Turin, you can believe it or not believe it, but then you get to the next thing, here's your prophecy, and that comes out to be accurate too. You get to another thing, here's stuff floating around. Well, maybe that one's not real. Well, how about this one? How about this one? How about this one? How about this one? Until finally, it builds up to a degree where, and it's not just one or two people saying, after you die, I stepped into another place. It's all of them. And they're describing the same thing that those ancient people are describing when they leave out of here. They're describing the same thing Enoch is describing, and so on and so forth. And that's really why we made that be 2 documentaries is because there was so much. I didn't want it to be possible for you to walk away, you know, even if you're a very skeptical guy, like those atheists
Right.
that tested the shroud with the priests. They're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be embarrassing. And as the atheists, they're getting ready to, you know, and lo and behold, it's the atheists that say, no, I think this thing is real. Well, the same thing with the entities. What we wanted to do was give people not only a reason to believe, but an excitement about it. You know, and I always say this, but they've been, you know, they've really been pitching a monkey world. And
right.
even if it were true, that would be boring. Look at this, man. And this is just the backdrop to an actual story.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't, how do we begin to understand prophecy or anything we really talk about that's of substance if that backdrop doesn't have some substance, that the supernatural is real?
Yeah.
And here it is. And so that's what, it's not just a fun ride with some, you know, things. What it is, hey, dude, this is real. Look here, and so forth.
Trey, where do people find the video to watch it? Where do they find your other videos?
Well, godinanutshell.com and also the godinanutshell.com.
And of course, you can not only, from there you can get to the YouTube channel and watch them on YouTube, but you can also buy DVD copies then to share with friends and relatives. It's a different style. Sometimes comes across as stream of consciousness, but it's not your same old preacher on Sunday morning standing at a pulpit and, you know, expositing 3 bullet points and a joke. It's different. And in that respect, it might get the attention of somebody who is not inclined to listen to standard preaching. And that's why we appreciate your work, Trey, and love having you in the region, the area. Trey, thanks for being on the show.
God bless you, and it's an honor to be on
Trey
there.
Smith, godinanutshell.com, and thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV.
Some of the greatest prophetic mysteries of the Bible that the world has ever pondered have now been carefully explored. And the SkyWatch TV store is bringing the exploration to you in the new Mysteries of the Bible Revealed special offer. In this special offer, you'll receive the new book by New York Times best-selling author Joel Richardson, Mystery Babylon. Richardson works through the history of the Christian interpretation of Mystery Babylon, weighing the strengths and weaknesses of each view, and then making a powerful case for a solution to this prophecy that will rock scholars around the world. You'll also receive The Mystery of the Shemitah from New York Times best-selling author Jonathan Cahn. This is a book you can't afford not to read. Cahn explores a possible 3,000-year-old mystery that may explain the timing of 9/11, the lies behind world wars, the collapse of nations, empires, and may hold the key to what lies ahead for the world and for your life. Plus, we'll also include in this special offer the unexplained mysteries of heaven and earth. Join author Ron Phillips as he combines his trademark theological balance with extensive historical research to travel through time to look at the flood, the Great Pyramid, the rapture, and much more. Altogether, this incredible offer holds an unprecedented retail value of over $50. Yours now for only $19.99 plus shipping and handling. So now you can explore the greatest prophetic mysteries of the Bible. Place your order for the Mysteries of the Bible Revealed special offer at SkyWatchTVStore.com now.
Life is good, but we need to remember that what we perceive with our natural senses is only part of reality. We're actually going to spend a lot more time in the afterlife than in this one. Welcome to SkyWatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert. It's a special broadcast for Thursday, February 2nd, 2017. Guest in studio with us today, man, creates some very groundbreaking and ready, Pastor Casper McLeod. But Talk about the premise behind the video, Afterlife. What was it you were trying to, what was the message that you were trying to put out there with that video?
Well, one of the things that I had wanted to, or I felt like the Lord had led to do, was to do something that wasn't on politics, coming right after the Trump video. And,
Yes.
and I'll tell you this.
Right.
Well, and it's not that that's not important. I mean, that is important. But second down from that was to release something. These were clips of things, Derek, that I had wanted to through some prophetic stuff that proves the mother of all afterlife and life after death experiences. And that's the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm. And that is the key to the whole thing. We were talking before we began recording here about the change in my worldview over the last couple of decades. 20 years ago, I have not had but maybe one experience that
I wanted to put out there for some time, man. In those clips are people that are telling you about heaven or hell. Mm-hmm. They're telling you that when they die, that they're stepping out of this reality immediately into another place. And depending on how long they're there, they're either going to see heaven or hell. And they're generally going to run into either angels or friendly-looking things, or mm-hmm. demonic-looking things, which sometimes look like the alien things. But more than that, also in that video,
fascinating video content for the internet, but also addresses some very important subjects. And as you might guess from the introduction, the most recent is titled Afterlife. We welcome the man behind the God in a Nutshell project, Trey Smith. Trey, welcome back.
It's an honor to be here today with you,
well,
Derek.
You have produced a series of videos that you call Entities, mm-hmm. and the most recent, Afterlife, which features some folks that viewers probably are familiar with, one that they should get to know if they don't know more.